Hey, I'm Jamie East, and today's episode of The Smart 7's brought to you by your nectar prices at Sainsbury's. These days it's hard to find value for money on your weekly shop, right? Well, maybe you're doing it wrong. You need to unlock the magic of your nectar prices at Sainsbury's. Every Friday, you can unlock up to 10 personalised discounts on things you love in the Nectar app. And the best part is that while nectar prices are for everyone, your nectar prices are just for you. So check your Nectar app and unlock your nectar prices to save more now. Enjoy your own personalised discount on things you love with your nectar prices at Sainsbury's. That's good food for all of us. The offer's for 18 plus, Nectar app required. Unlock up to 10 your nectar prices weekly. Available in supermarkets, online and in locals with Smart Shop. T's and C's apply. Seven things you don't really need to know, but probably should. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Sunday 7.
Thank you, Evans, in for Jamie East. And on today's episode of the award-winning Sunday 7, we get up to speed on this year's Nobel Prize Awards, hear why veggie burgers might be banned, and experience a fart chamber. Plus, Will Guyatt, the Smart 7's resident tech guru, talks us through the risks of the AI bubble and why French stamps smell so damn good. If you're enjoying our episodes, please do like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're here 7 days a week at 7 a.m. with the 7 biggest stories on the Smart 7 in association with Metro. Before we get started, though, it was on this day in 1928 that the first iron lung was put to use. It's an artificial respirator that enabled patients to breathe, and in the case of the first patient, a young girl at the Children's Hospital in Boston, she'd been paralysed by polio. Iron lung was invented by a Harvard doctor called Philip Drinker, and despite its intimidating appearance, proved to be hugely effective. This week saw the annual Nobel Prizes award, a story that was dominated by one eager applicant, Donald Trump, the President of the United States. He's been obsessed about winning a Nobel Peace Prize ever since Barack Obama picked one up, and has regularly been updating the world on the number of wars that he has stopped, or paused at least, since he took office in January. On Friday morning, however, poor old Donald got the bad news that the committee had awarded the prize to Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado for her work in fighting for democracy in the South American country. The Peace Prize is, of course, quite different from the other Nobel Prizes, which focus on achievements in science, literature and economics. The Economics Prize is due to be announced on Monday, and this week has seen prizes for chemistry, physics, medicine and literature awarded. The Chemistry Prize went to Susumu Kitawagwa, Omar Yagi and Richard Robson from the University of Melbourne in Australia. They received the prize for their work on developing a molecular structure to harvest water from desert air, extract pollutants from water and help to capture carbon dioxide. Richard was mostly delighted with the win.
I'm quite old now, and handling all the nonsense that's going to happen is going to be hard work. As I was constructing these models and plugging metal rods of clearly defined dimensions into wooden balls with accurately drilled holes, the thought arose, what if we used molecules in place of the balls and chemical bonds in place of the rods? And everything else followed from that. That was in 1974. So I had that idea, scribbled a few things down and then forgot about it until that area of chemistry came up in next year's lectures. And each year I think that was not a bad idea. I ought to do something about it. But I didn't for the best part of 10 years. In somewhat of a state of desperation, I started to try to make things that might polymerize with metal ions into structures in the middle 80s. But it really was very common sense.
The trio's experiments began in the 1980s, and their work is credited with helping scientists develop molecular frameworks that were instrumental in containing toxic gases when it comes to producing things like semiconductors. Nobel Committee member of Chemistry Olof Ramstrom says their patience has paid off.
They have taken basic principles of chemistry, we call this coordination chemistry, and they have been able to build such remarkable materials that can do so much, and I'm really impressed by that.
The medical prize also went to a trio, Mary Brunko, Fred Ramsdell and Shimon Sakaguchi, who won for their work that the prize committee described as fundamental in helping to understand how the immune system works. They investigated the T cells, which act as virtual security guards for the immune system and prevent immune cells from attacking other cells in our own body. So far, there have been over 200 clinical trials which build on the work the trio did, and Richard Sandberg, a professor of medical genetics and member of the medical committee, says that their discoveries have huge potential in a range of areas. says.
Hopefully these approaches will be effective in order to, stimulate these T cells, the regulatory T cells, to help you suppress autoimmune disorders, or maybe make organ transplantation less problematic by dampening the immune system's ability to reject the new organ. And also in cancer, it's being explored if one can, remove their suppressive ability to make it easier for immune cells to attack cancer cells. There are over 200 clinical tests ongoing, so there's a lot of activity, but of course, it's a long road to travel.
If you're considering winning a Nobel Peace Prize, the lesson from this year seems to be that 3 is the magic number, as another trio of scientists picked up the Physics Prize. John Clark, Michael Dvorak and John Martinez, all of whom are professors at American universities, were recognised for groundbreaking work in the field of quantum mechanics. Their experiments in the 1980s paved the way for devices like the cell phone and camera, proving 2 principles of quantum mechanics that enabled a leap forward in technology. The principle of quantum mechanical tunneling and energy quantization in an electric circuit were used to build a superconducting electrical system that allowed energy to flow as if it were passing through a wall. Goran Johansson is a professor of applied and theoretical quantum physics and is a member of the Physics Committee for the Nobel Prize.
This year's Physics Prize is about putting quantum mechanics, which we know from the subatomic world of electrons and subatomic particles, onto electrical circuit on a chip. Because you can engineer the circuits on the chip, you have artificial engineerable atoms. So instead of having sort of only the natural atoms, you can explore new parameter regimes. You can increase the coupling between, for example, an atom and then a cavity, if you like. And then in this kind of systems, you can look at different aspects and check that quantum mechanics works.
It's that time of the week when we need a download on all of the big drama in the world of tech. That means it's time to dial up the man with his finger on the pulse of the tech world. The Smart 7's tech guru, Will Guyatt. Will, we had an unusual intervention in the world of tech this week. What has the Bank of England worried?
This is a rare one, but it will shake many of us who remember the dot-com bubble wide awake. The central bank that controls the UK system is warning that the crazy valuations of AI tech companies might potentially collapse. Let's use OpenAI as an example. This time last year, the market recognised it was worth $157 billion US. And just a year later, without any real evidence of significant improvements to their product, the company is said to now be worth $500 billion. And Anthropic, another AI company, trebled its valuation in just 6 months. And the Bank of England clearly considers this dangerous.
Do they have a point? I think US banker Jamie Dimon said something similar this week.
One look at my bank account would tell you I'm definitely not a skilled economist. But when you've got the Bank of England and a leading US banker, both essentially suggesting the market might be about to head into what's known to financial types as a serious market correction, or to you and I, a crash that ruins the economy, you have to take notice. Also, bravely, Mr. Dimon, who runs America's largest bank, said that under President Trump, the US had become a less reliable partner on the world stage for other countries, which also lays on the risk when it comes to something going really wrong in the world of money.
Why are they so concerned? Is AI just a giant bubble?
There's definitely a growing concern that the market might be getting caught up in the relentless hype around the possibilities of AI and the jacked up values of the companies within it. Let's not forget that the world collectively held its breath 6 months or so ago when the Chinese AI company DeepSeek revealed that its AI model used a fraction of the electricity and required a fraction of the processing power, but then ultimately failed to independently prove its superiority to Western AI models. Frankly, the traders and investors that set the way are potentially smoking far too much of the hopium when it comes to the financial returns they are expecting long term from the world of artificial intelligence.
Apart from the impending global meltdown, we had the first case of stolen identities off the back of the online safety bill this week. What happened?
Remember how the government and idiots like me were assuring us that any ID that we were handing over to ensure we were age verified was going to be heavily protected? Well, buckle up, because the chat service Discord says 70,000 ID photos may have been leaked. Globally, people can provide their ID to Discord to verify their age. The company says that no full credit card details, passwords or messages and activity beyond conversations with customer service agents at the company were leaked. Now, your ID is particularly valuable to hackers because information like your full name and details on your passport or driving license likely only change once a decade, unlike your credit card information, which is changed regularly. Now, this leak wasn't directly linked to the Online Safety Act, which requires all of us in the UK who like to look at a bit of legal porn to prove we're over the age of 18 by handing over our ID or pass some enhanced checks. But that said, this leak shows us how it's one bit of user data that hackers are really keen to get their mitts on.
Is this going to be a common occurrence? Well, particularly for aficionados of inappropriate content.
It is, and sadly we've got to a weird dystopian stage where losing our personal data is actually one of the costs of existing online. Now, there are some steps you can take as a user, and we've talked about them regularly here, but every business online is a target, and a growing number of criminals are going to keep trying to get your information because it's less risky than robbing a bank on the high street, if you can still find one.
That wasn't the only odd web story this week, was it? What went on with the spy pups?
Spy Pups. Sounds like a great kids' adventure, right? Well, it was a really popular series of books that ran for around a decade and are still hugely popular with 8 to 12-year-olds years and years later. But behind this is a reminder to hold on to web addresses you may have owned at one point, as you'll never know who'll buy it next. After the author decided he'd moved on from spy dogs, it appeared the web address changed hands a few times and then ended up in the hands of somebody who thought it was okay to post hardcore porn. The web address was clicked at the back of a book, the porn was found, and the story sat alight. Within moments, schools were understandably emailing parents, while the publisher urged schools, libraries and booksellers to remove any copies of spy dogs from their shelves. Some parents were even sent the live porn link by schools, which made matters even more hectic. Thankfully, this issue was fixed by Nominet. You'll never have heard of them, but they run the .uk bit of the internet, and they were able to suspend the name due to a breach of their terms and conditions, and politely reminded the world in a press statement to consider holding on to web addresses you promoted in prominent places. Let's hope that closed the door quickly on Doggate.
And finally, a tasty story from France. Posting letters may be low tech, but the French have found an interesting twist on the traditional stamp.
This is brilliant. Scented stamps that celebrate artisan croissants hit letterboxes across France last Wednesday, honouring my 7th favourite breakfast. La Poste, the French version of Royal Mail, sent out around 600,000 of these stamps, which smell of butter and flaky crust. Now, you're going to have to really love croissants or love sending letters, because at €2.10 each, it costs more than the average croissant in a French bakery. Zut alors!
Still to come on the Sunday 7 in association with Metro, there's bad news for vegans and a surprising intervention from the Princess of Wales. There's an old joke that goes, how would you know if someone was vegan? The answer is, don't worry, they'd tell you. Our vegan and vegetarian friends have had a hard time from the carnivorous side of the species, and this week saw a fresh blow for those who choose a meat-free lifestyle. The European Parliament has voted to ban the use of phrases like burger or steak to describe products that don't contain meat. It's an attempt to clear up consumer confusion, and it's seen as a victory for livestock farmers who say that labelling non-meat products with terms that mislead consumers needs to be taken off the menu. Soizic Larcher is EU Policy Manager for the Veg Pro International Lobby Group, and she says there's no need for the rule change.
They say it's to protect consumer, but the data shows otherwise. Consumers are actually not confused. Familiar terms such as burger or steak are just there to actually help people understand how to use plant-based products in their meals. According to a survey from the EU consumer organization BEUC, 80% of consumers actually agree with the use of these terms as long as it's clearly labeled. The law already protects consumers. EU rules make sure that all products are clearly labeled, and last year, the European Court of Justice just confirmed that EU legislation is sufficient to protect anyone from being misled.
The legislation won't necessarily come into effect as it still needs the backing of the EU Commission, and each of the 27 EU countries will also have to ratify the proposal. There are already EU laws around dairy products, which mean oat milk has to be referred to as oat drink in European supermarkets. Pascal Bieri is co-founder of the vegan brand Planted, and he says that the work that non-meat companies do should be recognised as a positive rather than facing blocking from legislator.
I would say, hey, make product that maybe have a better impact on this planet than your pork schnitzel does, and win some consumers back. Maybe treat animals better and win some consumers back. I think it won't impact us much. It's just, hey, it's one of these arrows that gets thrown at us, and you need to duck, and you need to work on new namings and figure out how to do stuff rather than work on the greatest product that we love to do.
The Princess of Wales spoke out this week on smartphones, warning that they can create an epidemic of disconnection in family life. She was writing an essay called The Power of Human Connection in a Distracted World, which she co-authored alongside Professor Robert Waldinger from Harvard Medical School. The essay was published on the website of the foundation she founded in 2021 with Prince William. It's called the Royal Foundation for Early Childhood, and it's intended to help raise awareness and gather research on the importance of children's first years. Prince William recently spoke on an Apple TV interview and says none of their 3 children have smartphones, although we don't know if he's partial to a quick game of Candy Crush or maybe Royal Match. The research does back up the princess, and late last year Channel 4 made a documentary called Swiped, the school that banned smartphones, which was presented by Matt and Emma Willis. The Channel 4 team took over Stanway School in Essex and asked pupils to give up their devices. Alex McPhail is the Deputy Safeguarding Lead and PE teacher at the school, and he was sceptical that some pupils would be able to cope without their constant companion.
I think that you'll probably find that some, where their lives revolve around it, they're going to find it near to impossible.
The students seemed to cope pretty well with the ban, which lasted for 21 days and saw them turn to other, more healthy activities.
I'm a lot more active than usual. We've been playing like board games, going out for a bit and just having fun.
I've quite enjoyed not having a phone, and I've really enjoyed being more sociable.
When I'm coming home and sort of spending more family time, when I look at a phone it just seems a bit weird really.
My sleep's better. I think I'm more sociable, concentrate better and sleep better. In lessons I don't know why, but I'm more focused.
I have felt less anxious without my phone. I haven't had any anxiety or panic attacks. I think it's gone really well not having a phone.
I definitely think I'm going to delete TikTok.
Really?
Yeah. I usually get quite worried before I go to bed.
Yeah.
And I'm still suffering with that, but I suppose it's kind of helped.
And teachers at the school also noticed the difference. But the question is, what would it take for us all to take this step of our own?
One thing that I noticed early into the experiment was that as the students were coming in, the students who didn't have their phones seemed readier to learn.
The eye contact, when you stop in the corridor, when you're speaking to them, when you're checking up on them, their eye contact skills in just a couple of weeks seem better than they used to be.
Still to come on the Sunday 7 in association with Metro, a tragic diagnosis for a rugby hero and a Yorkshire sheep gets measured for emissions.
Right after this.
AI had the time of my life. AI never felt this way before.
From building timelines to assigning the right people and even spotting risks across dozens of projects, Monday Sidekick knows your business, thinks ahead, and takes action. One click on the star and consider it done.
And I owe it all to you.
Try Monday Sidekick. AI you'll love to use on Monday.com.
Welcome back.
As you're probably aware, the UK's rivers are not in a great state. In fact, a study last year by Earthwatch found that 61% of the freshwater rivers in the UK were in a poor state, with a cocktail of chemicals discovered in a mass testing programme. The findings show that both chemicals and stimulants were mixed in with river water, including caffeine, painkillers, antidepressants and sewage effluent, which tends to come from runoff from agricultural land. It's a pretty poor state of affairs, and a group of people who have decided enough is enough, and they're taking some of the companies accused of polluting the River Wye to court. It'll be the biggest legal claim ever brought to court in the UK, with more than 3,000 people signed up for a case against poultry producers and a water company over pollution in 3 linked rivers, the Wye, Lug and Usk. They're seeking significant damages for pollution they say has affected businesses, property values and people's ability to enjoy local amenities. The companies being sued all deny the claims. Ronan Lee is a local resident and one of those taking the case.
It's just, as an individual, you feel useless, but at least now that we've got 3,000 people standing up and saying there's a problem on the River Wye actually makes me think that maybe something will get done. It just doesn't seem right that you have to go to legal activity to look after the local countryside and the local waterways. It is sad that you've got to do that. It's sad that you can't get in the water without the smell and the grime and the slime.
There was a tragic announcement on Monday as former England rugby captain Lewis Moody announced that he's been diagnosed with motor neuron disease. He's one of a number of professional rugby players to have led the diagnosis, with both Doddy Weir and Rob Burrows previously suffering from the disease, although there's been no definite link made between rugby and MND. It's an incurable condition, so there's no good news for the man who led his country in the 2011 Rugby World Cup and earned the nickname Mad Dog. He spoke to BBC Breakfast on Monday morning to reveal his reaction when he got the news.
We sat on the couch in tears, Ethan and Dylan both wrapped up in each other, and the dog then jumped over, started licking the tears off our faces, which was rather sweet. But honestly, I can't really explain it, because it was, without a shadow of doubt, the horriblest, hardest thing I've ever had to do.
The disease, which is also known as ALS or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, affects the nerves controlling voluntary muscles, which leads to them weakening and wasting away. The effects can be debilitating and there is no known cure, although there are drugs which can solve the disease's progress. There's been no definite link between rugby and the disease, but there definitely appears to be a link between high contact physical sport and the effect on the body. Professor Andrea Malaspina is the clinical lead at the Queen's Square Motor Neuron Disease Centre, and he says that research is still ongoing.
It would be too precipitous, but clearly the association between contact sports, rugby and also football to a certain extent with the development of motor neuron diseases is there to be seen, is essentially discussed in large epidemiological papers. But one of the things that we have to bear in mind is that we have to be attentive to biases. So essentially causality is a different thing. So what we have to concentrate is on unraveling what are the mechanisms that eventually are associated to this kind of sport and to the disease that allow us to make a link.
There are many causes for global warming and there are equally many solutions, but this week saw ITV News highlight a particularly unusual one. The Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust is hoping to have an impact on the 6% of the UK's greenhouse gas emissions that come from livestock. Well, we say emissions, but really what we mean is farts and burps. Animals, particularly sheep and cattle, fart quite a lot, and those farts contain methane, which is particularly problematic greenhouse gas, 28 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So the Trust are trialling what they've called portable emissions chambers, also known as fart chambers. Adrian Thorntonberry is the owner of the home farm in Swinatwaite in Yorkshire, where the trial is taking place. The trial also aims to demonstrate which breed of sheep is best suited to the Yorkshire moorlands.
We're trying to establish if the Swaledale sheep is the best sheep for our native environment that we have. We've got moorland that is one of the world's rarest resource, and that needs some animal to graze it. And a lot of the local farmers are switching more onto a commercial breed, which isn't as well suited, I believe, to the habitat as a natural Swaledale sheep.
John Gordon is a technician from Scotland's Rural College, and he's running the test that sees sheep placed in individual metal containers where the methane they emit can be precisely measured. Oh, and he has a slight correction too. What they're measuring aren't really farts.
Small burps. The measurement we're taking is the methane coming from the sheep's stomach, so it's coming from their mouth and their nose.
Michael Priestley is from the National Sheep Association, and he says the trial is part of the agricultural sector's commitment to reach net zero.
Just like any industry, you need data. The agriculture sector has committed to try and reach net zero by 2040, so reducing methane from our sheep and our cattle will be a part of achieving that.
This has been the Sunday 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. with the regular Smart 7. Have a great rest of your weekend.
Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.
Fall is here and Nordstrom has the latest styles and hottest trends. Thousands of options for under $200. I'm talking about plaid outerwear, oversized sweaters that are cozy, Western-inspired pieces, prairie dresses, and you know I love a skirt. Nordstrom has free shipping and returns, which is why I love them. And they have fast options like buy online, pick up in store. Shopping at Nordstrom is always easy. I love that Nordstrom is always high quality and kind of guides me in what's trendiest for the season. And they have the top brands like Veronica Beard, Favorite Daughter, All Saints, Coach, Rag & Bone, Tory Burch. So shop now in stores or at Nordstrom.com or download the Nordstrom app.